Hello everybody, I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Today is going to be a video about Palantir. I'm going to literally cover three things. The first thing I'm going to do is give you guys a pep talk because Palantir is up 160% for year to date. And all of a sudden it's down 7% and people are whining and crying like little biatches. You guys pray for a pullback. You pray for a dip to the stock gods. And then when the stock dips, you guys will do fucking nothing. So I'm going to have to give you guys a pep talk. The second thing that I'm going to do is cover a new NHS contract. I spoke about it briefly in my last video, but I wanted to put a bigger context on this contract. And finally, there is an interview from the head of Palantir, London. He was on TV today and he gave a revelating, absolutely amazing interview talking about the war in Ukraine, talking about artificial intelligence, and in no certain terms spoke about us getting the NHS contract, which I believe this is where everything is leading to. So if this is something that you guys want covered, please stick around, sit back, relax, and enjoy the rest of this video. I don't know where Palantir is going to go. Up, down, sideways. Nobody knows. Now that Palantir retreated to south of $15 a share, we did hit an all-time 52-week high. Actually, it's north of $17. When that happens, people are literally lining up, screaming, banging on the walls. I wish the price of Palantir went down. Look, you don't have a 160% run-up without a retracement. I mean, seriously, did you ever think in your wildest dreams 2 months ago that we would be talking about Palantir at the $15 or so mark? No. Factually, no. Nobody really predicted this. We all had high hopes. We all imagined that it would get to, $11, $12, but nobody thought that it would actually tip at $17. And now you have a retracement. So you guys can do one of several things. You can do nothing. You can buy the dip. You can bitch and moan as the dip happens, saying, I'm going to wait for a bigger dip. And then when the price skyrockets again, you guys are going to be saying, I wish there was a dip. Next time there's a dip, I'm going to buy. You see, there's a recurring theme of the way people think. And this is the recurring theme. You bitch when the price goes up because you wish it went down. When the price goes down, you bitch that the price is down, wishing the price is going to go up. So on and so forth. So with all jokes aside and all seriousness, nobody knows what's going to happen. If you have a lot of shares, consider selling covered calls. If the price is going down, so consider selling cash secured puts. This is additional ways of making money on the upside and on the downside. If you guys want to learn more about options, I have a channel membership down below where I actually show you all my options trades and I actually go over this. If you guys want to become channel members, it's $3 a month. YouTube takes $1. I'm left with $2, which buys me a cup of coffee. Thank you so much if you want to support the channel. Now I want to talk about a brand new contract that we got from NHS England specifically. As you know, Palantir is vying for a massive $500 million, possibly $1 billion contract for a federated data platform with the United Kingdoms. Our existing contract ends right now, right in the middle of June. And we just got an extension contract for £25 million, not dollars, £25 million for a 1-year period to make sure that there is no break in the transition, which means that there is no hiccups, no issues whatsoever as Palantir transitions into the federated data platform, their existing platforms. Remember, the NHS England essentially runs on Palantir Foundry. So now they want to make sure that there's no interruptions in services while somebody, possibly Palantir, gets this massive $500 million or $1 billion contract. Now you might want to say, how did Palantir get to this specific point in time? Well, this all actually happened. Palantir Healthcare in totality happened right during COVID. And the initial start was warp speed. Donald Trump's warp speed. Now, they did have healthcare before that, but this is really where it took off. And they helped with the PPP delivery, and they helped with the vaccine distribution. But they didn't just do it in the United States. They actually did the same thing in the United Kingdoms. I'm going to read you a quick article. Stay with me. This article reads, Palantir deals with the NHS England top £60 million without competition. 60 million pound is like right around 90 million or so, something like this, maybe 80 something million. The latest 24.9 million pound transition contract is an attempt to bridge the gap between the contract UK.gov is due to award in September. Now, this is going to do a really, really good job giving you a chronological order of how Palantir was able to infiltrate. Yeah, I'll use the word infiltrate because we got some seriously hating ops. The opposition is straight drinking haterade on Palantir. So I'm going to use infiltrate. How we were able to infiltrate the United Kingdoms and how we were able to start working with this massively profitable and smart government. NHS England, the health department's Quango, first started working with the US data analytics company during the height of the pandemic when it was awarded a £1 where it was awarded a £1 contract. That £1 contract led to a £1 million contract, and then it led to a £23 million contract that was signed in December of 2020. The deal was subject to threat of judicial review. So the governments, they have leeway. They have a certain amount of leeway that they could spend without, public involvement or public perception. Obviously, there's groups that hate Palantir for different specific reasons, so on and so forth. So they started a big stink about this. And because they said that this was an extremely important, such a change in data usage, to be correct, it was warranted public consultation under British data protection law. So the NHS England later decided not to extend Palantir's contract beyond the pandemic without consulting the public. Even though this consultation of the public is still ongoing right now, they were able to extend the contract based on their rights, based on their abilities. So they have certain capabilities, the government, where they don't need public okay. And even though there's so much hate about Palantir, unjust hate, Palantir is the only company that can do what Palantir does. Time and time again, we hear this. In January, NHS England extended the deal by 6 months for a value of £11.5 million. The maximum 50% value extension allowed without competition under the UK's public procurement law. Now, this is one of the ops of Palantir. At the time, tech law campaign group Foxglove said that it had not seen any of the consultation they promised during the last legal round over the COVID data store. That deal came to an end on June 11th. As you know, June 11th just finished. So in order for them to continue without any interruption, there's now NHS England has now awarded another deal to Palantir as a transition contract while it finalizes the procurement of the federal data platform, a £480 million contract, which is way north of $500 billion. And this gets us to where we are right now, where we have this absolutely massive £25 million contract. If I'm not mistaken, 60 million British pounds is actually over $100 million, if I'm not mistaken. So this is actually a huge deal. So now you got to ask yourself, where does Palantir actually stand after all of this hate? And are they going to get this contract? Lewis Mosley, who's the head of Palantir in England, he had a really good interview with Bloomberg. I'm going to play you this interview. You guys can take what you want from this interview. If you get nothing else, pay attention to when he's asked about the NHS and how he specifically says Palantir is not concerned with your data. Palantir does not keep your data. Also pay attention how Palantir starts small, and even though there's so much hate on Palantir, and not from the people in charge, right? Around public perception, public pressure, Palantir continues multiple times to get the contracts because the people using Palantir at the top are smart. Despite what they believe in Palantir, their personal feelings, Palantir is the only company that can do what Palantir does. And in parallel, working with the NHS, Palantir was able to work with the private sector as well. In the United States, in Canada, in Japan, continental Europe, Ukraine. In America, 13% of all hospital beds are run on Palantir Foundry. Guys, 10% of American revenue is from healthcare, over $30 million, as per Shyam Sankar, as per Dr. Alex Karp. We start small and we expand like a freaking hot air balloon. We're huge. We're about to go to outer space. We're about to take SpaceX, and we're about to get on Elon's rocket, SpaceX, all the way to the moon. Please watch this interview. I promise you, you're going to get a lot out of it. Thank you so much. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think about this whole scenario. And is Palantir going to get this massive contract? And did you take the opportunity to buy in the dip? Because I certainly did take advantage of this dip. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of this video.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me. 3 reasons. First, talent. The UK is a world-class destination for AI talent. Brilliant universities, fantastic people coming out of those, but also a magnet for global talent. And I think really only second to the US. Second is this evolving, as you mentioned, approach to AI regulation. I think the direction of travel there is very promising. And third, for us, actually, this is really a natural evolution. It's a well-kept secret, but we've had a very large presence here in the UK for over a decade, nearly 1,000 engineers based here. And we do much of the core research and development for our other software here in the UK.
Louis, there has been quite a lot of pushback, right, for some of the contracts that you've been trying to get for NHS, and doctors being worried that it's a private company managing some of the infrastructure and what you do with the data. What kind of assurances would you give today to people working in services that are worried about how their data is used?
So I think those are very legitimate concerns. Anything that touches patient data in the NHS needs a lot of scrutiny. But I think a lot of the concern around us specifically stems from a misunderstanding about our business model. We are not interested in the economic sense in the NHS's data. We're interested in their business. Unlike other tech companies, we don't monetize data. Our business model is licensing our software to help large, complex organizations to make better use of the data they already lawfully control.
You're in the process of bidding for about a £400 million contract. I know you don't want to get into the details of that bidding process, but can you just give us a sense as to your level of confidence as to whether or not that's going to fall to Palantir? Can you give us a nod as to how you feel about that process?
I'm really sorry, Tom. I can't comment on ongoing procurement processes.
Okay. In terms of the NHS stuff.
All right, I gotta just stop it for 1 second. All you gotta do is look at the smug smirk on his face, and you could see that pretty much we got this contract. This is the guy that was supposed to argue and debate with Foxglove, and the debate was canceled. Me and my colleague Amit both say that the reason why the debate was canceled was because Palantir knows that they already got the contract. And sorry if I was looking this way. I'm looking at my second screen. I apologize. So Palantir, I think, has this contract in the bag, and we'll get a better answer. So we were supposed to get the answer by September. So I guess we're going to know in the next 3 months or so if we are going to get it or not. There's a lot of hate on Palantir, but at the end of the day, once you go carp, you'll never go dark. And it's very, very cool what Mosley is saying. We don't give a flying fizzle about your data. We don't monetize your data. We allow you as a business to use your data that much more efficiently to make you that much better. I think he did a phenomenal job so far. I'll try not to talk so much. Let's watch the rest.
And then we'll move on to what's happening in terms of defense. But there is this view, and you hear this from Peter Thiel, of course, one of your co-founders, saying that there's kind of a UK Stockholm syndrome around the NHS. There's been Bloomberg reporting around some emails from you talking about buying your way into the NHS. There's a view amongst some, rightly or wrongly, that Palantir is a bit of a predator. How do you kind of counteract that above and beyond what you've just said around the needs to put in place the right controls and the fact that you're not holding onto this data?
Yeah, I would counter that very firmly. Okay. I'm incredibly proud of the work that we have done with the NHS. Our software has enabled them to deliver PPE during the COVID crisis, to deliver the vaccinations to all of us here in the UK. And at the moment, we're helping them reduce waiting lists, which, as you know, is the major challenge that the healthcare system is facing.
Louis, do you worry about AI? I mean, some of your tech is so powerful, and this is something that we've been trying to explore, that actually, if it's in the wrong hands, it could really damage national security.
These are very legitimate concerns. And I'm very glad that the UK is taking a lead on this question. I think it's all about finding that balance between safety and innovation and experimentation. The challenge is finding that balance.
Are you talking to the Prime Minister and his team? Are you having close contact with the government about how to build out those guardrails? To what extent are they consulting you on this?
So I think the very exciting thing about the direction travel that they're taking is this non-statutory, broad cross-sectoral principles, but then the regulation itself happening in the context-specific domain. So if you take, for example, medicines, drug discovery, the application of AI there will be very, very different to the application of AI in, say, autonomous vehicles. So you want the individual regulatory body in that domain to take the lead.
But how do you know who you're selling it to and what they use it for?
Well, this is where I think it's so important to have that body of law that exists here in the UK, world-class courts, world-class regulators, and they take the lead on what's happening in their specific domain.
Talk to us. You've been really consequential in terms of your partnership with the Ukrainians in that really important defence of their nation. You've been offering the services around on the battlefield, but also imagery in terms of satellite imagery, but also helping things like building out a case for war crimes and targeting the Russians on that front. Are you expanding the scope of your relationship with Ukraine? Are there more services you can offer? And do you need the financial backing of Europe, of NATO, of the US to expand that opportunity?
Well, of course, Tom, that's a very topical question today as the Ukraine Recovery Conference kicks off in London.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian Prime Minister and many, many senior figures from across the world are here to discuss precisely that question of how do we start to think about recovery and reconstruction in Ukraine. And, you know, I would just argue that to win a war, you need a strong economy. And so it's very important to help Ukrainians figure out how they can, at the same time, start to rebuild transport infrastructure, energy infrastructure, those prerequisites to economic recovery.
Palantir is named the official partner of Ukraine's reconstruction. The World Bank is saying Ukrainian reconstruction is going to cost between $400 and $600 billion estimated. Palantir is going to be doing three main things for Ukraine. Number one, the defense of Ukraine to make Ukraine a central technology hub for Europe, and the actual physical reconstruction of Ukraine. Palantir is going to be a monster. It's not a monster yet. Palantir right now is just a baby. It is going to be an absolute monster world beater in the future. Watch what I'm saying and mark my words.
Role to play in that and on that front.
I would hope we will. I would very much hope we will.
Is there a part of an AI tech that you think shouldn't touch an economy or defense or national security? You know, we're still trying to figure out exactly how this changes all of our world, from how we search Google and algorithm and things like that to actually what it means for the national defense.
So I think it's a fast emerging sector, as you said. I mean, the obsolescence of what's being built is almost day by day. And in that context, I think it would be foolish to try and predict where we might be in 2 or 3 years' time.
Are there some technologies that you're developing? I mean, Alex Karp, your CEO, suggested that there's something so powerful that they wouldn't want to release them to certain customers. Are you holding back on some of the products that you've been developing? And will you be how much of a fence will you put around some of these products when you're focused on some customers? Are some customers going to be denied some of these abilities because you're concerned about how they're going to be used?
It's always been our approach from the inception of Palantir. We've had very clear red lines about who we'll work with and who we won't. So, for example, we have never worked with adversarial nations like China or Russia.
Okay.
And that will continue? I mean, I imagine that continue.
Absolutely.
How difficult is it? And again, how difficult is it to actually track who it sells to? Like, if you sell technology to a friendly nation, but then this goes elsewhere, I mean, can you actually track it?
Yes.
How do you track it?
Well, we track who's using our software, where it's being used. So there's a technological dimension, there's a contractual dimension.
Back to the defence part, NATO has its own venture capital fund it's setting up, so it's going to be investing in some key technologies. Are you working with NATO directly? Are you expecting to get further contracts from NATO? And what does the spending in Europe, the ramped up defence spending, mean for your prospects in Europe?
Well, I think we've been in Ukraine, as you know, for the last 18 months. And I think that's opened the eyes, not just of Europe, but the wider world to where there might be gaps in military capability. People have seen what works on the battlefield and what doesn't. And clearly that has opened a great deal of opportunity for us around the world.
I mean, does that mean that policymakers in Berlin and elsewhere kind of tapping you on the shoulder saying, maybe it's about time we worked with you at a deeper level if we're not already? Are you getting that sense?
We are, yes.
Okay, so contracts are going to be coming from Europe as a result of this.
I don't want to make any predictions, but the conversation's alive.
But you'll speak to us first when they do. Thank you,
Of
Louis.
course.